We have decided. Declaration number 4. We declare that the season of unnecessary warfare is coming to an end. Therefore, we have decided the voice of the empowered church will be heard in the land, and the giants of opposition will fall. If you have children, you know how important it is to pick your battles. You also know how quickly a peaceful home can fall into chaos when, as a parent, you allow your own frustrations to engage in an insignificant issue with your child. There are battles that are necessary and essential for the growth and development of the child. But unnecessary conflict will wear you out and leave you unable to deal with real issues in a healthy way. Getting us engaged in unnecessary warfare is one of the enemy's primary objectives. We see this early in our history in the Garden of Eden. Now the serpent was craftier than any of the wild animals the Lord had made. He said to the woman, "Did God really say, 'You must not eat from any tree in the garden'?" By bringing into question the word of God, the serpent was leading Eve down the path of engaging in a war that God never intended for humanity to fight. The battle between good and evil, a battle that would lead us to the loss of innocence and death. His strategy hasn't changed. He still wants us to engage where we cannot win, using weapons that are ineffective, and aiming at the wrong enemy. Peter stood next to Jesus with his sword in hand. They, along with the other disciples, had come to the garden to pray and were now being confronted by Judas, leading some religious officials and a contingent of soldiers carrying weapons. Peter must have thought this was why Jesus asked him to bring the sword. This is the battle he'd been waiting for. If Peter had paid attention when Jesus acknowledged to the soldiers that he was the one they were seeking, he would have known that Jesus didn't need any help and that he was not choosing to fight this battle but to yield. Peter, however, was primed for a fight. Warfare was right in front of him. How could he not engage? This was just cause. They were arresting an innocent man, and he was prepared. So Peter drew his sword and hit the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. Peter was looking at what was in front of him with natural eyes and engaged in a battle that was not his to fight. It is possible that his unnecessary warfare set Peter up to lose the battle he should have won with a servant girl a few hours later. Unnecessary battles have consequences. In life, warfare is a reality. In fact, it is a necessity. The Bible speaks of warfare as if it is assumed that we are involved in it. Jesus tells his disciples that the kingdom of heaven is forcefully advancing and that the violent take it by force. The Apostle Paul writes that we are to fight a good fight, describes the available weapons, and instructs us where to engage and where not to engage. The question is not, should we involve ourselves in warfare, but when, where, how, and with what should we engage? There are so many good causes to choose from in our world today. If we are not wise in our efforts, we will find ourselves overwhelmed, scattered, and ultimately defeated, fighting the wrong battle. Let's look at scriptures that will help us know the timing, targets, strategy, and the weapons of successful warfare. When the children of Israel were ready to enter the land that God had promised would be their home, they sent spies in to prepare them for the warfare that would be required for possession. When God had brought them out of the bondage of Egypt, they had experienced the miracle of crossing the Red Sea and were now poised to see the promise become a reality. It would involve warfare, but God was with them. This was their time, and Canaan was their target. Because the people became afraid and refused to take advantage of the opportunity, they were told that they would live in the wilderness until a generation died. When they heard this, they decided to go into the land. The result was complete defeat in their one and only battle. 40 years later, a new generation would enter the land. Timing is everything. Paul wrote to his spiritual son Timothy, encouraging him to wage the good warfare. In his second letter, he, speaking to himself, stated, "I have fought the good fight." This brings up the question, what's a good fight? The simple answer is that it is one we win, which begs the next question, how do we win? In his second letter to Timothy, Paul again addresses this question by warning him not to get caught up in the issues of life that only distract from the objective of the warfare. No one engaged in warfare entangles himself with the affairs of this life, that he may please him who enlisted him as a soldier. Focusing on the battle God has called us to sets up for victory. In his second letter to the Corinthian church, Paul speaks to the effective and ineffective weapons of our warfare. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds. Using fleshly weapons generated by our own strength and cunning will only frustrate us and escalate the conflict, leading to defeat. But the weapons of God's arsenal are mighty and powerful, making for a good, victorious fight. Notice Paul's further instruction found in his letter to the Ephesian church. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood. Our weapons, the full armor of God. Our target, the devil's schemes. We are not at war against people, but against evil in the heavenly realms. We are to war in the heavenlies and love those in the earth, no matter what they stand for or against. And our weapons are not of man's devices, but of God's making. Paul goes on to describe what we are to wear and the weapons we are to have in our arsenal. The belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the good news of peace, the helmet of salvation, the shield of faith, the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, and praying in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. These are the weapons for a good fight. Jesus gives us the final word on how to know the battle we are to engage in. But when He, the Spirit of truth, comes, He will guide you into all truth. We have decided to fight where He leads, and in the power of His might. We will see our giants of opposition fall as we battle His way and with His weapons.